Hi everyone. I wanted to make a video about how I make this final drawing. So this is the end result, and let's start with it. Let's start with the sketches. So often with the personal project, and let me first say why I make personal projects. So I want to work in feature animation. So I want to make concept art for the newest movies. So to get that job, you need portfolio projects. And the best thing I believe to do is to create your own movies and stuff and create the things you want to create for it. So I want to be a visual development artist. So creating characters and environments. So for this project, I wanted to make something sci-fi, a sci-fi movie. So I create sci-fi characters and environments for it. So I started with this idea. I want to do something with sci-fi. So I start creating some random aliens and robots in my sketchbook just to get to start with some ideas. So I didn't have any particular in my mind to make. So I start drawing these aliens in my sketchbook, and often of times I do that when I'm in the train, traveling to work or friends or anything. I take my sketchbook as many as I can with me, and I sketch with these pencils. But you can use any pencils you like. I just like to use not that too expensive stuff, but to just doodle some stuff. And when I have something like this, I start to think, oh yeah, this is a cute animal. Alien, I can use that. Maybe I can use that for, I think so. Maybe, oh, this fish in this robot head is cool. So when I have something like this, I start sketching a bit more, often digital, and fleshing the ideas out a bit more. So I start sketching, yeah, what would be a cool spaceship for them? And what would be a cool space car? And I want enemies, and maybe this is a cool, cute lead character. And then I start fleshing it out more with creating some heroes, because maybe I want to be the main heroes being two humans, a brother and a sister, and this is their sidekick, and this is some comic relief. And Octo robots, because we want to have robots in it, and a robot dog because it are two kids and they like dogs. So I think that, and then the arch enemy. So then I start to think about the whole thing and fleshing it out more. So I start really open, and then I start to narrow it down more and more. And because I was making this for this magazine, they asked me to either make a double page or a single page vertical. And I really like the vertical one, because it's, yeah, I like those comic book covers, but I felt it was getting a bit too crowded, and I think it would work better maybe if you have two characters and one arch enemy in the background. So it wouldn't fit for a lineup full of characters, and that was what I wanted to make for this issue. So I was thinking more of a horizontal piece and then characters next to each other, so it's a bit more readable. So I actually really liked vertical like this, but I ended up choosing, because I think for a lineup this fits way better. Maybe later I will make a comic cover for these characters, or movie poster, whatever you like. So yeah, and when I choose for this setup, and then I try to come up with some different compositions and stuff, when I make this decision to go further with this one, I start creating the sketches. So I basically take these rough drawings. Maybe I can let's just take them to the other image. So here, I basically start then with this. So I take this rough drawing and place it around, and then think there needs some space for the text and stuff like that with the tutorial. So I need to make it more wider, and I also need to consider this this seam between the pages. This seam. So there should be some space besides it. So start with just really like this, making it a bit broader. And then I start thinking, oh, that robot dog need to be here. And then we have this character need to be here. And this monster need to be here. So I start breaking up the whole drawing. And it can be very rough because I want to get the composition right. And maybe the car needs to be here. And then we have this enemy. Maybe I want to get it here. This girl is okay here. Maybe this alien needs to be a bit lower, like this. And this one needs to be here. Something like this. And then we have this spaceship here. So then I notice that I have a lot of space in there. So I place everything a bit up. And then I start thinking, oh, how can I make it and improve it? So maybe, so in the end, I choose to remove this one and make 3 ships like this, something like this. And creating here a big planet. And then I was thinking, oh, maybe I could draw the parents or something, or some heroes in the background. And then draw some explosion here. And I just start playing around and sketching really rough. Like it basically looks like this, and I spend more time in it. And sometimes I start, okay, how would these characters look? And I start fleshing it out more. But basically this is how I start. And then I end up with something like this. And of course, this is a big step, but I really go from this to this then, and so something like, and even in the final drawing, I change some more stuff and change some of the composition. So yeah, here, how I make these sketches. So what I actually do, what is important to show, maybe I can start showing it now here with this kit. I start with an action line, and with this character it's this. With this character it's basically this. With this character it's this, and this character is this, and this, and this, and something like this, something like this. So something like this. And then I also get some sort of sense of the direction of how things go. And a line of action is it makes sure that your character is full of life and have them dynamic pose and so on. And let's take this character because it has the most dynamic action line. So here you can see this S shape. So this character is presenting itself, it is arm wide, so it goes a bit like this. So when you have this action line, then you can start adding construction on top of it, like this. And then I start with these simple shapes, these simple construction shapes, so I understand how it works in 3D. So I start with the big shapes. Often I start with the head, then I start with the torso, and then often the legs, especially because those legs are on the ground, but in this case they're in the air, so the tail is sort of like. But also I try to think of the perspective the character is on. So perspective works like this. You have the horizon line, and then you have first vanishing point, second, and then those move to a point. So, and then you know your character is standing on this plane. So you know. So basically, what I'm doing here is creating such a plane, but then I place those points in my mind. So if you're starting out with perspective, it's good to find some beginner perspective books or tutorials. So when I have these big shapes down, I start adding the smaller shapes like that. And I try to go with that flow line, that first line. You see like this. And then those arms for last often, because you can place those arms everywhere and they don't influence the total body that much. Of course they do a bit, but I think the legs have way more influence on the action line in the pose. So that's how I start. Basically, my sketches look first like something like this, really sketchy. And when I think, yes, that's it, then I start designing like all the details, and I stay sketchy. And I use this sketch brush. I also added for this tutorial those 4 brushes, and I basically use these 4 brushes to create the character. So I have this sketch brush, and then I make it a bit bigger, and then I start sketching in the mouth, and I start thinking, oh, maybe you need some buck teeth or something. Those ears, maybe they need a bit more oval. Think of the direction he needs to look. So maybe one eyebrow down and one up. And so I use these round shapes here, but you can go a bit, give them a bit more angles and stuff once you're making the final design. So then I start drawing roughly over it. So when hands can be difficult to draw, start with circle, and then the fingers, one shape for the fingers, one shape for the thumb, and then it's the last details lines. That's last. So here, something like this. So yeah, then I start designing everything. What kind of boots? Maybe something like this. The underside of his feet. Something like this. Then here we have this tail going like this. And then we have these fluffy ears. And then maybe this ear is behind it. So there's also overlap. And overlap means when something is before the other thing. So here, or this leg is overlapping this other leg, and that creates depth. So that's also what I try to get into my drawing. So his ear is behind that one. And I also try to get the silhouettes clear. So when we put this down, and for when I make big shapes, I use the lasso tool. L in Photoshop is shortcut for that. So making the silhouette, and this is basically the silhouette, something like this. So, and then fit it, and you also have negative spaces. So negative space is the space between stuff. So this is negative space. You can erase that. So this is the positive space, and this is the negative space. And make sure that your character is readable and clear. If you can read your character like this, then it's really clear. So strong characters have clear silhouettes. So do you recognize the character I'm drawing here? So here you can see this is a clear silhouette of a clear character. You can recognize it right away, even when I'm making a bad drawing of it. But that's the idea, that these silhouettes are really clear and that you check them. So here I was making those sketches, and when I have this, then I just start keep working on it. So like this here, so going like this and this. Yeah, and I try to think in 3D. So I try to think in these three shapes. In a circle, like here, or a sphere, in a cylinder, like this, and in a cube, something like this. So, and these shapes you can rotate around and stuff. So I try to build up those, think of these objects in these characters. It's also a good practice if you're practicing the line of action, for example here, and this ball is going this way, and this body, maybe a cylinder, goes this way, and maybe his hips are a cube, and then they go this way. So try to think of those things, and also think of the squash and stretch. So when you have a ball, you can push up and the bottom to each other, and then you have these sides go outwards. The same if you pull it, you have this. So especially with cartoony characters like this, you get that. So this head, so he stretches a bit, so this part will get a bit stretched like this. So try to think of that if you're drawing cartoon, and it makes your character feel alive. And so especially with the cheek, for example, this is all pushed together, and here this is stretched with the eyebrow, but here it's a very cool and stuff like this. So here this is stretched as well, this arm, but here this leg is pushed together. You see, this is, and the leg stretched would look like something like this. So this is stretched or squashed, and this is stretched. So that's basically kind of how I start with sketching those characters. And I do that for them all, and then I try to place them. I put them on separate layers, so when I make this character, then I start working on this character. But I keep it on a separate layer, so I can easily move it around to get a better composition, so that everything is quite readable and stuff. So that's for characters. But I also use this sometimes for example, a car like this. Sometimes it can be hard to draw something like that. So what I sometimes do is work in 3D, and then I make some simple car like this, and I can show it here. So basically I make something in Blender 3D, so it could be something simple like this. It doesn't have to be really that detailed. maybe sometimes I do add some more objects in it. So let's maybe add some other stuff to it to make it a bit more detailed. So then I want to add a bit more detail, and then I just make things like this. And if I'm just going to use it for my drawings to keep the for use it for difficult perspectives, for example, and I just often I leave it as rough as this because I think that's enough and that saves time. But sometimes I do color it and work it out more. It also depends a bit on the projects. Sometimes I work for clients that wants really detailed stuff, and then I start making way more detailed work. For example, here, and then I see here. I can see, oh, here's the middle of the car. So I actually need to build this shape up a bit more. And then, so, but it's good to, for example, I use Blender because it's free and it's quite easy to use. There are a lot of YouTube tutorials you can watch to learn this. And the good thing is that you can, if you have made this model, you can draw it in every angle, in difficult angles, and maybe you can add for example, with the camera, and then you can create a wide angle camera, for example, to get different cameras and stuff like that. So, but when I have something I like, I export it to Photoshop, like here. Sometimes I make screenshots or make a render, and then I start drawing on top of it. For example, here, and then you have you use the construction what I sometimes draw by hand, and you can paint over it. So what I basically do is what you can see there. I start painting on top of that. So like this. So that's really handy for these kind of props. I don't use it for characters because they are organic, but things like this that need to feel solid and using 3D can be really handy. It's cool if you could also draw some characters on top of it. Maybe this is this boy enjoying a sandwich on the car. So you can also draw on top of that. So you can make really cool stuff. Maybe there's a character sitting on this wheel as well. And maybe here this character is repairing the car. So you can really make some cool stuff with using 3D. And I think it's getting more and more important to learn a bit of 3D as an artist. And you learning these things, models, isn't that hard. I think if you go to tutorials and you spend one day on it, you can create something like this. And let's go to the final piece, like here. I want to show a bit how I create a character and how I color it and stuff like that. So let's look at this character here. So let's just start with sketching this character a bit. So put the smoothing a bit off because for sketching I don't like to have the smoothing too much up. But start with the line of action. That's something for this creature. So maybe let's make him a bit different. What I also like to do is then maybe let him look over his shoulder, something like this. And then his chest, so there's here a twist. And often that works good. So his head is looking that way and his body is looking that way. So then we have this tail is also making this twist. And those twists does give a bit more, more dynamic pose. So let's do something like this, and maybe we make his mouth open. I would see his mouth open more, or maybe leave it closed for now. So something like this. I think it's fun if you maybe change the animal bit. So this is a rough drawing, and then put the opacity down like this. Make a new layer, merge those layers, select them both, and Control E to merge them down. So now you can go on top of that layer, sketch a bit. So something like this. So then I start making some more design choices. Now I have the, maybe he's smiling, maybe he has these cheeks here. And he has this. So maybe you see a bit of cheek here. Make him a bit different than that one in the top. Making those antennas, maybe we can make them all around. So making those also around like this. And then it's the body. There's this twist. We have his balls, something like this. And then we have this body here. Going like this. And then we have these wings here. Maybe here's these details. Can be really rough now. Something like this. Maybe we want to have a bit more space here because it's then a bit more readable. So turn this a bit soft. Don't merge this layer, but make a new layer on top of it. And then take brushes here. And then we take the ink brush. And then start inking the character like this here. So something like this. So then I start inking the character like this. And here's the smoothing, good to have a bit higher because then you get these smooth lines here, this smoothing. So something like this. Pupils. So let's go a bit faster because of I don't want to bore you people. Here is these, and then this part like this. Then these eyes here, and then these antennas. Okay, something like this. And here as well. So maybe those irises. Normally I would take a bit more time for it to get it really nice, pretty. But it's basically how I create these characters. So also try to do is to work with these kind of lines, I, S, and C. So now I did this. And I make, when I'm finished, or maybe I can just completely finish the whole drawing. So quite quick. So normally take your time for this part. Maybe those wings here. So something like this. And then I turn off the sketch off and put a new layer and put that layer in a man. And then I use shortcuts like Ctrl G for making a new man. So then with the lasso tool, L, you can draw in. So, and if you press Alt, you can change your lasso tool so you can make this long straight lines. And then if you drag it again, then you can draw those selections. So first I make the whole shape. So something like this. So these shapes are a bit more complicated. So go like this and then drag it. So to get this overall shape right. Here and here and here. So I'm making one big shape that I can paint. So making also those wings. Let's look where it is. It needs to load a bit because I'm recording. It's a bit heavy for my computer. Now I have the selection and I press G for the paint bucket tool. And then I pick this color. Now for the colors, I always work with AHP. So then I pick the color. So I start with the base color. Here I pick quite bright bluish, alienish blue. And then in this shape, I take this with Control click on the thumbnail, then go on the folder and I press this mask button. Then I can draw in this character and then it stays in that shape. It's also a handy tip is going to panel options, and here you can click your thumbnail size and thumbnail contents. If you try this out, layer bounds or entire document. So thumbnail contents layer bounds, and you see this, the preview image will be determined by what's in it. So then I take the ink brush and I start drawing the eye colors in it, something like this. And I'm making this all on separate layers, like here and here. And maybe giving these wings different color, like here. Maybe this body. So, like this. Sometimes, often I use the lasso tool for this as well. It takes a bit more time, so this is a bit more rough. But I think you will get the idea of it. So then I have something like this. And now I want to color it, but first color the line. So I take these lines and press this lock button, and then you can make this, take this blue and take a bit darker. Then you, if you have this selected, you can draw in on that shape. So to give those lines a bit of the color of the inside, and that gives this nice effect. And you can also use that to color those drawings. So determine the light source. So first I think of where the light is coming from this corner, from here. So something like this. So then you can color in those shapes. So I take the paint brush from here, and that one is soft. So now I press this button again here, and then you can paint the shadow in it. So the sun is coming from here, the light. And then you can make here the shadows from this side. Think of a ball you're shading. So this is up and this is down. Then you can make a bit lighter for the highlights in the top where the most sun is coming on. So here. With this soft brush, I just paint it in. Sometimes I use the lasso tool for some parts I want the extra light. Here. I use a lot of time with the eye tool for the drop big color, so I can pick easily some color. There's also some bounce color on the ground, so get this here to give a bit of the 3D-ish feeling. Also feel a bit of this here, so something like this. And then I start adding some extra colors for the back here. And then the eye. So the iris is the lens is transparent, so there's fluid in it. So the bottom will be lighter, and the top part will be a bit darker. So that's really opposite of the different parts, but that gives this nice eye feelings, and also give those highlights on top of that. So here, then we put these on here and here. Maybe we add some more highlights here, 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 and so you use highlights if you want to have something a bit more shiny. What I also like to do is at the edges add some extra light. So you use that for how would you say that? There's some rim light on top of that, so you can add some extra light here and there. You can also use it to, for example, here's a dark background, so the character will stand out a bit more if you use that light there. You can paint that in at the edges. So here and here. So here. And then take this color, take the soft brush again. And for example, this one. And take dark color. Oh, here, look what I did. I didn't toggle this button. So make this darker. So basically, yeah, this is quite quickly done. So it doesn't look that good yet, but I wanted to show the steps a bit in a certain time. So here, and then there's also some casting shadow here as well. You can add something like this here, and then with the gradient tool, you can use it a bit like this. So yeah, that's basically how it works for all these characters. So I hope you enjoyed this how I was drawing this, and yeah, that's it. So let me go a bit through it. So here, yeah, here you can see for this, it's a shiny robot. So here, this glass, I added some extra highlights, and here you can see the light is coming from this side, but here from this side, the light is also coming from this side. So I used two light sources because I wanted to have the. I think it was nicer to have the light here on the faces and here as well, like this. So sometimes I play around with that a bit. So you also have the shadow going these directions. Yeah, and the background is quite dark, so I tried to make the characters a bit lighter. So that's why I also added a lot of light red in this character here to stand it more out of the background. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show in this video, and I hope it was useful and that you liked it. So thanks for watching. Bye.